The morning sky over northern Germany is the color of gunmetal. Below, a frozen coastline slides past. Above, the vapor trails of 300 bombers etch the heavens like scars. In the tail of one of them, a B-17 nicknamed Red Apple 1-3. 21-year-old Staff Sergeant Eugene Moran sits cramped behind twin 50 caliber guns. His breath fogs the glass. His world is a rattle of metal and cold air that smells of oil, sweat, and fear held in check. Navigator to crew, 10 minutes to target. The voice is flat, practiced. Everyone knows what that means. From this moment on, they live second to second. Eugene tightens his flak jacket straps and scans the horizon. The clouds ahead are not clouds at all. They're smoke columns from Bremen's factories. Somewhere beyond them waits every German gunner within 50 miles. Pilot to crew, keep it tight. Don't drift. The formation banks slightly, wings slicing sunlight. From Eugene's tiny windows, the rest of the squadron looks like an airborne city, gleaming and fragile. A dull thump shakes the fuselage. Then another. Black bursts of flak bloom in front of them, soft as cotton until one shreds past with a whip crack that rattles his teeth. Shrapnel rings off the tail. "Flak, 11 o'clock low," someone yells. Eugene steadies his hands on the grips. He's trained to wait, to watch for fighters using flak smoke as cover. The first ones always come before the bombs fall. Bombardier ready, doors coming open. The bay doors yaw wide, freezing wind howls through the ship. Through the haze he sees faint specks, growing, multiplying. His stomach knots. Bandits, 12 high. The intercom erupts. He exhales once, leans into the sight, and whispers to himself, "All right. Let's dance." A rocket streaks past the cockpit, missing by inches. The sky explodes into motion. The formation tightens like a flock sensing predators. Engines thunder in layered rhythm, 100,000 moving parts beating the cold sky into submission. Then the first shadow cuts across the sun. "Bandits, 12 high." The call snaps through the intercom. Everyone already knows. The Germans always come head-on, where the armor's thinnest, where courage means nothing without luck. Twin-engine Bf-110s spear through the flak clouds, black crosses flashing across their wings. They aren't here to dogfight. They're carrying 21-centimeter rockets, each one capable of tearing a fortress apart. Here they come. The first salvo streaks through the formation like a storm of fireflies gone mad. One detonates ahead, a blinding flash and a concussion that kicks Eugene's chest like a mule. He watches a bomber above take a hit to the wing. It doesn't explode, it simply folds, slides sideways, and vanishes into cloud. Tail to crew, 1 fort down. Eugene's fingers squeeze the triggers. The twin Brownings roar to life, shaking the tail with every burst. Brass casings clatter and spin under his boots. Tracers chase the enemy as they dive past, vanishing beneath the bomber's belly. Navigator to pilot. Bombs ready. Hold steady, steady, release. A deep mechanical groan reverberates through the fuselage. The bombs drop. The plane lifts, freed of its burden. For 3 seconds, silence. Then the sky erupts again. Bandits, 5 high. Multiple, multiple. Single-engine fighters dive in this time, 109s, and the dreaded butcher birds. Streams of red tracers whip across the formation. Eugene tracks one cutting across his sight, fires. A quick burst, the shape jolts, smoke trailing off its wingtip before it tumbles away into cloud. "Got one," he shouts, breathless. But there's no victory here. For every one that falls, 3 more take its place. And the next wave is already screaming down. For the first time in what feels like hours, the sky holds still. No tracers, no engines screaming past. Only the low hum of 4 Wright cyclones pushing them through frozen air. Inside the B-17, silence has weight. The men breathe like they're afraid to disturb it. Sweat cools on their faces, freezing against the oxygen masks. In the tail, Eugene keeps his eyes on the glass. Nothing moves. Just the thin horizon and the slow spin of flak smoke far behind. His heart still beats to the rhythm of the fight. Burst, reload, brace, repeat. But the music has stopped. He lets his shoulders drop, flexes his cramped fingers once. Then a glint. Small, silver, deliberate. Out of the haze, a lone fighter drifts closer, level with the tail. Not diving, not firing, just watching. Eugene adjusts his sight, but the arc won't reach. The German pilot knows it. His yellow nose gleams like a dare. Through 2 inches of perspex, 2 men study each other, one behind iron sights, one behind glass courage. For a breath, the war pauses. The fighter dips a wing, almost polite. Then, in a blink, peels away and vanishes into sun glare. Eugene exhales, a sound halfway between relief and confusion. That's when the universe decides he's had enough peace. The next burst of flak slams close, hard enough to jar every bone in his spine. He grips the triggers. Nothing. The guns click, stutter, die. Tail to crew, guns jammed. He yanks the charging handles. The belt sticks. Shell casings roll around his boots like marbles. Another explosion rocks the airframe. He works faster, hands raw, breath short. Outside, the light changes, from morning gray to something darker, heavier. The next wave is forming, and he's not ready. The sky turns violent again. Tracers carve red lines through the clouds, slashing past the wings. The radio is a blur of panic, half sentences, static, shouts drowned by engine roar. Eugene clears the last shell from his feed tray, just as a new burst rakes the fuselage. Metal shrieks like an animal. The whole tail kicks sideways, his forehead smacks the gun sight. For a heartbeat, he sees stars inside a world already made of explosions. "Pilot to crew, we're hit!" The voice is strained, distant, almost swallowed by interference. Then nothing. The bomber groans as if the airframe itself is begging to stop. Rivets pop like popcorn along the sidewall. Smoke floods the compartment. Through the glass, Eugene watches the left stabilizer flap wildly, half torn from its mount. He grips the frame above him, yelling into his mic. "Pilot, I've got control issues back here. Do you read?" Only hiss. The intercom crackles once, a single cry he can't make out. And then silence. A new sound fills the void. A deep, bending roar, the metal flexing beyond what it was built for. The tail shudders, shakes free of its rhythm. "God, hold together," he mutters. A final enemy pass screams in, bullets hammering down the spine of the aircraft. One finds something vital. There's a thunder snap from forward, then daylight where no daylight should be. The fuselage ahead of him twists, folds, and begins to shear away. A giant piece of the world tearing loose. Eugene grabs the ammo belt for balance. The floor tilts. The roar becomes pure wind. And then, without ceremony, the B-17 breaks apart. The main body tumbles ahead, burning. He is still strapped in the tail, a capsule of sky and metal, falling alone through open air. The first second is sound, a roar so deep it feels inside his bones. The next is weightlessness. Then comes the spin. The tail section tumbles end over end, sky and ground trading places faster than thought. Eugene's harness digs into his shoulders. His helmet slams the headrest with each rotation. Wind claws through every gap in the fuselage, howling like a living thing. He grips the mount, the only solid piece left in his world, but the steel is slick with oil and blood. The horizon flips again. a smear of cloud, a flash of sunlight, then trees somewhere below, spinning like green knives. His training whispers nonsense, stabilize, orient, prepare to jump. But there's nowhere to jump from and no time left to choose. The parachute at his back is full of holes. The spare is shredded near the tailwheel. He tries to breathe. Every inhale feels borrowed. You're alive, he tells himself. For now, that's enough. The air crushes against his chest, turning breath into labor. He can't tell up from down anymore, only motion and speed. Loose ammunition rattles in the tail like hailstones. Far below, through flashes of light and shadow, the earth swells larger. The forest floor rises to meet him, slow at first, then faster, faster. He braces, arms crossed, eyes open, impact. The tail hits sideways, carving through pine tops, shearing branches in explosions of bark and splinters. Metal screams. Something snaps inside him. Ribs, maybe. Then stillness. Dust drifts in thin light through the cracked frame. Everything hums, as if the air itself is remembering what just happened. Eugene doesn't move. He doesn't even know if he can. And then, nothing. Silence. For a long moment, that's all there is. The kind of silence that hums. It's the sound after thunder, after impact, after everything that could make noise has already broken. The air smells of sap and fuel. The tail section lies wedged between tall pines, its skin torn open like a tin can. Cables hang like veins. A single wing fragment dangles high above, rocking gently in the wind. Below, in a cradle of mud and needles, Eugene lies half buried beneath torn insulation and spent shells. His body refuses to move. His lungs flutter against splintered ribs. When he finally blinks, dust falls from his eyelashes like ash. He tries to roll over. The world tilts. Something inside his head clicks, not a sound, but a feeling. He touches the side of his skull and finds a crack wide enough to fit 2 fingers. Warm blood seeps down his neck, dark against his collar. The air is cold enough to bite. Each breath feels like glass, but he's breathing. That realization hits harder than the crash. Overhead, the wreck creaks. A loose panel snaps free, plummets, and buries itself in the dirt beside him. He flinches, too slow, too weak, and coughs up a streak of red. Somewhere beyond the trees, voices rise. Muffled, not English. At first, they blend with the wind. Then clearer, French. Another voice joins, harder, sharper. German. Eugene's pulse spikes. He tries to crawl, dragging himself toward a fallen trunk, but the effort drains what little is left. Boots crunch through the frost. Flashlights sweep the wreckage. A shout, then hands, rough, efficient, roll him over. The last thing he sees is the gray sky framed by pines and a man's face bending over him, saying words he doesn't understand. The stretcher lifts. The world returns in fragments. Light, sound, pain. A ceiling made of rough planks. The smell of alcohol and rust. Somewhere nearby, a man groans like an engine trying to start. Eugene blinks into a haze of yellow lamplight. His head feels heavy, wrapped tight. When he tries to move, the world pulls against him. Both arms are bound in splints, ribs bandaged tight beneath his torn undershirt. A shadow leans over him, not a soldier, but a doctor in a worn brown coat. His accent cuts through the fog. Stay still. Hands, steady, careful, unwrap the gauze from his head. Beneath, cold air touches raw skin and metal. A thin plate glints faintly under the light. Aluminum, the doctor mutters. From your plane. It fits. Eugene stares at him, too dazed to answer. He doesn't need to. The man simply nods, as if speaking would be an unnecessary kindness. Around him, the room hums with low voices. Rows of cots filled with men, some whispering in French, others silent forever. Nurses move between them, faces gray with exhaustion. At night, fever takes him back to the sky. The spin, the roar, the sudden stop. He wakes gasping, hands clawing at air that isn't there. The doctor appears again, needle in hand. "Sleep," he says. "You're still here." Those 3 words root themselves deep. When Eugene wakes again, he repeats them, sometimes aloud, sometimes only in his head. "You're still here." The words become a rhythm, a defiance against the fall that never ends. Outside the window, snow drifts past barbed wire. Somewhere, engines rumble, not bombers now, but trains. The war moves on. He remains. Time passes in repetition. The same soup, the same count, the same ceiling boards above his cot. Outside, snow gathers against the barracks walls, softening even the barbed wire. Inside, men cough, whisper, dream. Eugene measures the days by the sound of boots in the corridor and the rattle of a stove that never burns quite hot enough. Across from him, a thin man with bandaged legs stares at nothing for hours. They exchange nods, rarely words. In a place like this, silence feels safer than conversation. One afternoon, a guard enters with a small bundle of envelopes. The room stirs, the living react like plants reaching toward light. Most names are German. Then, one foreign sound, Moran. The guard squints, shrugs, tosses the letter onto his blanket. The paper is worn soft from its journey, smudged by hands, dirt, distance, and months of waiting. Eugene opens it slowly. The handwriting is unmistakable. His sister's. Simple lines about home. The store still standing, the dog still limping, the maple by the porch shedding early this year. Ordinary life, written like a miracle. He reads it twice, 3 times, then folds it flat and presses it against his chest until the ink feels warm through the fabric. Later that night, a new arrival limps in. Uniform torn, face gaunt but alive. The guard calls him by rank, navigator. Eugene looks up. Recognition hits both men at once. Jesse Orison. His voice cracks. "You made it." Jesse grins, hollow but real. "Looks like." They sit in silence for a long time, each lost in the same sky they fell from. That night, Eugene dreams again of falling, but slower this time. Less terror, more weightlessness. Maybe that's what healing is. Falling without fear. The war ends not with fanfare, but with silence, a silence heavier than the bombs ever were. One morning, a guard reads names from a list. Repatriation. The word rolls through the barracks like sunlight through fog. Some men cheer, others just stare, as if afraid to believe in endings. Eugene stands when they call his name. He's thinner now, older in the eyes. The doctor nods to him from the corner, a quiet farewell between men who survived different battles. Trains carry them first, east, then south. Faces blur through windows. Bombed-out cities slide past, their bricks dusted white by winter. Then ships, gray hulls with rust streaks, creak beneath the weight of those coming home. On deck, Eugene leans on the railing, watching the ocean unspool. He feels the wind press against the scar on his head. It hums like memory. When land appears, he almost doesn't trust it. The dock smells of diesel and salt. Flags wave, but he's somewhere else, still halfway between the sky and the forest floor. Weeks later, a diner. Chrome counters, black coffee, jukebox hum. Across the booth sits Jesse Orison, thinner, older, same quiet behind the eyes. They don't toast or talk about luck. They just sit, hands around mugs, steam fogging the window. Jesse finally says, We made it, Mo. Eugene nods. Yeah, somehow. The silence that follows isn't empty. It's full of names, faces, sky. When they part, Eugene walks home under a soft drizzle. On his desk sits the letter from his sister, edges frayed. He places a blank sheet beside it and clicks a pen. For the first time, he's ready to write it down. The story won't bring the others back, but it will keep them from being forgotten. Decades pass. The noise of war fades into history books, into black and white photographs that can't capture the cold or the smell of smoke. But for Eugene, the sound of engines never really leaves. It just settles somewhere deep, like a heartbeat that doesn't need remembering to keep beating. He lives a quiet life. Small house, workshop out back. The neighbors know him as the man who fixes things, clocks, radios, bicycles, machines that stop, and somehow he finds a way to make them run again. Maybe that's what survival turned into for him, the need to put broken pieces back together. On the shelf above his workbench sits a small model of a B-17, the tail patched with aluminum tape. Beside it, a faded photograph. 7 young men in flight gear, smiling like they had all the time in the world. Every year, he writes a letter, not to anyone in particular, just to the ones who didn't make it home. He folds it neatly, places it inside the model, and closes the cockpit. A private ritual for ghosts who never asked for heroes. Sometimes he's invited to schools or veterans' halls. He doesn't tell stories about glory. He talks about fear, about endurance, about what it means to do your job when every instinct says, run. He ends his talks the same way, voice steady but soft. Courage isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It's the hand that keeps working the jammed gun, the heart that keeps beating after the fall. What held that day wasn't metal. It was grit, friendship, and the refusal to let go. The camera would linger on him a moment longer. The man, the model plane, the light through the window.